You record to the cloud?
I do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
To the cloud.
To the cloud.
All right. Well, should we get started?
I think so.
I'm just buzzing with excitement to start our program.
I wish I had a good bee pun. I don't have any.
You have to be a little bit, I mean, you're already a nature nerd.
That's true. If it was like reptiles, I would like have like 10.
Your time
ready
will
to
come.
go. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We are really excited, buzzing with excitement. I'll say it one more time. How many times should I?
Just be yourself. It'll be fine.
I'll just be myself. We are so excited to be here tonight. With everybody. Unfortunately, we wish we could be in person with everybody. We're getting used to this virtual stuff.
It's getting there.
I know. At least we're vaccinated.
Hey, we are vaccinated.
Science cross. That's pretty exciting. Maybe sometime we can see people in person again. But we can keep dreaming. Are we ready to get started with Nebraska Nature Nerd Night?
I think so.
Okay. Let's really set the tone.
All right. Are we ready?
Okay. Ready? If you're a nature-loving science nerd, we think that you just might be happy like us to start Nebraska Nature Nerd Night. Birds, bees, parasites, snakes, and fossils too. So you're curious brainiac, we got a show for you. A little nerdy.
That was so nerdy.
That was
Amber.
so nerdy, but
oh
like that's where we're here. We're so excited.
All right, we're ready to go.
I know. Okay, so my name is Amber Schultz. I am the Wildlife Education Program Manager for Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.
And I am Monica McCoubry, and I am the Wildlife Education Specialist with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.
And we have been so excited for this program. We've been planning it for a while. We essentially are professional science nerds and nature nerds. So we do this kind of stuff all the time. And one day when we are nerding out about, I can't remember at this point. Was it reptiles?
Yeah, it was like bird poop or something.
Something crazy.
Yeah.
We thought to ourselves, can we get the show on the road and I'm sure there's other nerds out there.
Clearly, there's what,
I know
41 of them
exactly.
Out there,
so we're pretty excited to start Nebraska Nature Nerd Night. We're so happy that everyone's here joining us, and we're gonna get started. Let's do share that screen.
Yeah, we'll start with some not the funnest stuff, but we'll start with this, some things that we got to take care of here. So we're gonna share a screen here really fast. All right, so as you all know, we're going to talk about bees tonight. This is our Nebraska Nature Nerd Night. Just really quick, if you type in the chat or if you talk to another person or if you unmute yourself to ask a question, just remember to keep it clean, keep it on topic, just be nice to everyone. We won't have an issue. I'm sure we won't. Another thing is that this is a monthly series. Did you know that?
So
yeah, every month until November.
I don't even know what my favorite topic is going to be.
I mean, I know mine, but
it's going to be the mustelids for me.
I was actually thinking the parasites are going to be my thing. Yeah.
So pumped.
Well, no, everyone knows it's going to be the venomous snakes with my favorite thing.
For sure.
So. But yeah, we have something every single month coming up. Our next one is going to be May 18th with Jason, the bird nerd, if you know who he is. Definitely come to that one. But like I said, we have something all the way through November. Every third Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Every third Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. here on Zoom. We're going to be talking and nerding out with you guys.
Something for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing is during this program, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be chatting with our experts here. We are not experts.
Absolutely. We're just nerds.
We're professional nerds. We're professional science educators, professional wildlife educators. But we don't know like everything there is. I feel like I know a little bit about everything.
I know that bees are insects.
That's a good start. Yeah. I know I love bees. I love them since I was a little girl.
That's pretty nerdy.
Well, I mean, that's why we're here.
That's true.
So, but we're going to be talking to our experts tonight. You all might have some really great questions. Feel free to throw them in the chat. If they're kind of relevant to our conversation, we're going to ask them right away. If they're kind of totally off the wall, which is fine because we like nerdy questions.
We like those questions.
At the end, we're going to do about a 5-minute like lightning round question because we want to make sure we get everybody's questions answered tonight as best as we can. So are they tired of hearing us?
Yeah, this is why we brought Natalia and Katie on.
We have real bee searchers here tonight.
Oh, I like that.
I know, but it was Katie's idea. I didn't come up with that.
Well, and I will not coin that one. I got it from somebody else.
Okay, so we're gonna introduce our amazing bee experts here tonight. So our first one, Dr. Natalia Bjorkland. I remember I met Natalia like 5 years ago. I needed a bee expert for a BioBlitz out in Western Nebraska. I just sent this random email somewhere towards Lincoln. And this lady chimed in and said, "Oh my gosh, I'll come out to Western Nebraska and be your bee person."
That's cool.
And I feel like we've been bee best friends ever since. So.
Well, and we're also, didn't we find out that we're cousins-in-law?
Oh my God, that's right.
Wow.
What a crazy world. Anyways, Dr. Natalia Bjorkland, she's a pollinator scientist. She is a recent graduate of the entomology department at UNL. And in the past, she also was an extension educator or horticulture educator from the Nebraska Extension. And she's done a lot of other really cool stuff. And also, my favorite thing about her is she is a giant nerd. It's probably why we're friends, for sure. And then we also have Katie Lamke. And I first met Katie when I signed up to do the Bumblebee Atlas program. Have you done that yet?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
You do not have any free time? Or?
No, I'm a mom.
Oh, well,
Not free time.
okay.
We won't hold it against you.
Right. So Katie is, when I first met her, I was just blown away by her knowledge and her passion about bees, especially bumblebees, which are the cute fuzzy ones.
Oh, okay. I do know those.
You know,
Yeah.
those. But she is the bumblebee conservation specialist, and she works for a Xerces Society. So we are really excited to have these experts with us tonight. Should we just get started with our questions?
Yeah, they want to hear from Katie and Natalia.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So thank you guys for coming. Let's just get started. I want to know first and foremost, what got you both excited?
Buzzing about bees.
There, you finally did
I
it.
did it.
I'm really proud of you.
What got you both buzzing about bees?
Yeah, what was your
How do
first
you get
bee
into
nerd moment? You guys can fight over who gets to go first. Go
You
for it.
want to go, Katie?
Sure, I can go first with this one. I, in college, thought I was 100% going to be a plant person. And I had this really amazing professor, and I went to school in Northern California. So we were learning all about the understory of the redwoods, and plants and ferns were the thing that I was interested in. And during that last year, I had some elective room to take, and the plant professor that I loved so dearly was teaching a course in pollination biology. So I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And little did I know, this man that I thought loved plants turned out to love bees even more. And just so the way that he taught was just phenomenal to listen to. And so classes usually involved going out into the forest and looking at different plants and who pollinated them. And we got to look at them under microscopes, and I was hooked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. So seeing them up close kind of just did it for
Up
you.
close, yeah, under the microscope, and all their little details that they have that you wouldn't even think about.
Very cool. Wait, no, so do you still like plants then, or are you just like, you're done with plants and you're all about bees?
I feel like I have to like plants.
That's
but-
fair. Okay. Natalia, what about you?
Well, I was into plants and I stayed into plants.
Oh, okay.
So when I was a horticulture educator for UNL, and I started going back to get my PhD, I had already decided I was going to go into entomology, because it was such a big part of my extension job that I just needed to like brush up on my ento identification for my clientele. So I was just taking classes, and somehow, you know, it was prairies and Nebraska. It was always Nebraska because I'm a native Nebraskan, and I just wanted to know more about what we had. And so I can't remember how it came about bees, but my aha moment was I had already started studying bees with two other PhD students, Louise Lynch and Erin Ingram. And we're all graduated now, thank goodness. But I distinctly remember we were in a BID class together, and we were looking at this shrub on campus, and there were all these little insects flying around feeding on it. It was blooming, and most of them are bees. And I distinctly remember that a lot of them were very, very tiny. And I could not get over the fact that was a bee, and that I never knew that bees that small even existed. And like, how was I completely immune to it until, you know, age 39?
Huh. That's crazy.
Just the diversity of bees, because most people, I feel like I've asked this before, when people think of bees, honestly, they think of like the sweat bee, which is that even a real bee or is that a wasp? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So there's definitely bees that are called sweat bees. And I would say that most people think about honeybees, but
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think most people think of honeybee, and if you come across somebody that knows about sweat bees, I'd be like, oh yes, you know about bee diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are the sweat bees, it's like the really tiny ones that come out in summer, and nobody actually knows for sure why they're collecting sweat, but they think they're lapping up the salts on our skin, kind of like Gatorade.
Oh, okay. Electrolytes. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Yep.
So it sounds like you both were inspired by other nerds originally.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we'll inspire some nerds
Maybe
tonight.
that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a bigger picture to this. Okay, we're just having fun. Okay, so some of our first questions, we really want to know more about wild bees essentially in Nebraska and kind of dive into that topic. And then when we say wild bees, what are we talking about? What's the distinguishing factor between wild
And are there domesticated bees?
Yeah.
Like, is this a thing? I've heard that before.
Let's go there. Natalia.
Ah, I was waiting for Katie. So wild bees are wild. If you want to talk about domesticated, that would be like honeybees. Another word that you might hear kicked around is managed. So they're managed. There's a human component that are involved. Bumblebees in greenhouse settings for pollination can also be managed for pollination. And then there can also just be wild bumblebees. And there are a few other bees that can be managed for pollination. But generally, by and large, most of the ones that we're talking about, other than honeybees, are wild.
Okay.
Katie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, they're just like wild animals as opposed to cows or chickens that you would manage or have like as livestock. There are wild bees and there are managed bees.
Do either of you have any idea about how many wild bees we have in Nebraska? How many species?
The
A tough one.
expert in the Midwest, who Natalia and I have learned a lot from, he estimates that there's about 300 to 400 different species that are in Nebraska.
Like 300 to 400.
There's like
Species. That's species.
Yeah.
Species,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, like, what is it, Katie? Like, how many bumblebee species are in Nebraska?
In Nebraska, there's about 20.
Yeah. So, like, just keep that in mind. So, there's 20 bumblebee species. There's this many this species. There's this many, and that's not counting honeybees.
Okay, not counting honeybees because honeybees are not wild bees. They are managed, domesticated.
They're managed and they're not native.
Okay, where do they originate from?
Where do honeybees originate from? Nerds.
Isn't it Europe?
You asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Bingo, Monica got it.
Yes, the reptile person got him. Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, that is like the one thing I know is that when you ask kids, you know, what is our state insect? Honeybees, and then you say they're not native, and people are like, what? Why are they not native? Where'd they come from? Why do we have them?
Is it kind of like is that kind of like
Yeah.
our state animal is a cow?
Yeah, Minnesota just changed their state bee to the bumblebee too. They no longer have the European honeybee as the state bee. So we could do it here in Nebraska.
That's pretty sweet. Natalia, you mentioned some things like there's bumblebees, and then we talked about sweat bees.
Mhm.
So I'm like a nerd of all sorts, bug nerd, bird nerd, all the things. And I'm thinking about birds, and I'm thinking like there's groups of birds, right? Like you have the raptors and the songbirds and the shorebirds. Are there like, what's the grouping with wild bees? Are there groups of them? And you know, can you describe any of those for us?
Sure. So usually wild bees would be grouped probably the easiest way into families.
Okay.
So there's species, which is like the individual, and then there's the genera, which is like one group above that. So like think my first and last name is Natalia Bjorkland. So that's the species. Maybe all of the genera in my immediate family, all the Bjorklunds in my immediate family, that's the genera. One step above that would be like grandma and grandpa, blah, 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 blah. That's a gross simplification, but
No, that's helpful.
generally speaking.
Mhm.
So if you want to say families of bees, there's about, is it Katie, is there seven families
There's
in the
7.
world?
I feel like
Yeah.
I have to
Are you
take
taking
notes.
notes?
Yeah, like
Oh
I'm
my gosh,
No.
nerd. All right. All right.
Did you say 7 families in the
There's
whole
seven,
world?
there's 7 families worldwide, but only about 5 of those you would find in Nebraska.
I would have thought there's way more.
Because one of them's in Australia only, right, Katie?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yep.
And then
yeah.
where's the
The end.
Melodidae is in?
Melididae is here. They're just
They're
uncommon.
super rare. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
if you found one, like if I found one, I would be like, what is this? Is this a wasp? And then I'd probably let it go.
So to summarize, at least in the Midwest or the Great Plains, maybe we don't know specifically Nebraska, because I'm sure bees don't like stop at a border and think, okay, this is a state. But anyways, there's 300 to 400 species, yeah, of wild bees.
In
And
Nebraska.
in
Yep.
Nebraska, and about 5 comprised of 5 families. Is that correct?
Yes.
What are the families? Because I'm still taking notes. Or are they difficult? Am I quizzing
Well,
you?
hold on a second. That brings
Okay.
us to a good point.
Let's do it.
The book that all of us have.
Oh, I have it. This
Oh my
was
gosh,
a,
nerd.
this is a birthday present I just got, and I literally
Really?
scribbled when I got it. So I just have to say thank you.
It talks about it's a great book if you are interested in bees. I would not buy this book if you were going to try to identify bees necessarily. Katie, would you say so?
I think if you're just getting into it,
Like
it can give you a good
super
overview
basic,
of what
yeah.
they.
Katie
Yeah.
and I can identify bees because we've been looking at hundreds and thousands of specimens, but also under a microscope.
Right.
So a lot of those you can't identify unless you have a scope.
What do you look for then? I don't want to interrupt this.
No, go for it.
The numbers and the families here. How do you identify them? Like I've heard there's certain things that, like you said, you have to look under a microscope to be able to tell this species from this species. What are you looking at?
Katie, you talk. I've been saying everything.
So for each of the different families, the way that they're split up is sort of by their morphology, their life history, their diets, and it just kind of the bees start to group naturally. And for each of these groups, they have different characteristics that we look for. So in a mining bee, they might have these 2 strips on their face that you can't see unless you have a microscope.
Even if you do have a microscope, sometimes there's hairs in the little strip and you're like, they're not there, I swear it. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
they're there.
Yeah, sometimes you're looking at little sweat bees and you're trying to see the sweat bee. How big would you say a sweat bee is, Natalia? Like the size of a pen tip? Like if you flick a pen out, maybe the size of that.
Yeah.
And you're looking on the thorax of this bee or the center part of the bee to see how many punctures there are, like pinpricks, and how big they are and how deep they are and how close they are. It gets pretty nerdy.
Sometimes there's pinpricks within the pinpricks.
Oh yeah.
It's called double punctate.
Doubly
like-
punctate.
Yeah, write that down. I want to remember.
And sometimes you're trying to decide if the hairs are yellow brown or brown yellow.
No
That's
way.
literally how some
Now
of
you're just
the,
messing
yeah,
with
it's like warblers. If you're going back to birds, they're just
us.
really
Don't get me started
Don't
on warblers.
please talk about
same
birds.
thing. Same thing.
I'm so excited. So excited about warblers. I'll save that for May. Yeah, because that's birds. Okay,
Yeah,
focus on bees. Okay. Okay, so this is good, but really quick, just to stick, I want to understand. There's 5 families. What are those families? Can you say those?
Want
Okay,
the
so-
scientific name?
Say what?
Go for it, Natalia.
So some of the first ones that you're going to see right now is the Andrenids, the Andrenidae family.
Mining bees.
Could one of you guys type that in the chat just so I know how to spell it? And then also everyone, I guess we have to
There'll be a
teach
quiz
everybody.
at the end.
Yeah.
It's not just for us to learn.
Yeah,
like,
there's
this is for everybody.
yeah. There's a
Other
quiz at
people
the
are
end,
here.
too,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, Andrenids, cool.
And then also in the springtime, well, Andrenids, there's a lot of them. And it was my joke when I was trying to identify something. If I didn't know what it was, I would say it was an Andrenid. And then 99% of the time I was right.
So we
Because there's a lot of species
We're
in
talking-
that family.
That's
A
the
lot of
Andrenid.
them are that family. Katie, Didn't you have a fact about Andrenid that you told me one time?
Yeah, there's a genus within that family called Andrena that I think has about almost 2,000 different species. That might
Yeah.
be on the high end, but there's
Yeah.
and they are very difficult to tell apart.
Okay,
Oh, God.
my understanding, according to this handy dandy awesome book, is there's about 4,000 species of bees in the world. Is that correct?
No.
I think it's higher than that.
Let me back that fact up. I think the answer is yeah, right. So
There's
that,
about 20,000 species in the world that we know
oh, I'm
of.
so sorry. That
North
was North
America.
America.
North America.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah,
really-
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
really
also higher than that. It's at, I think it's closer to 45, isn't it, Katie?
oh wow.
yeah, if you include Mexico in that. If you're just talking US and Canada, it's about 3,600 species.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But so worldwide 20,000 species of bees? Okay.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Okay, so we have our
Take
Andrenid
one or two.
family, and then what are the other four?
Oh, so I was gonna say that Andrenid, some of the species will come out in the spring, some later, and some not until the fall. So there's so many, they have all different kinds of emergent times.
Cool.
Coletids are another one that you'll see mostly in the spring.
Would you mind?
And they're little heart-shaped faced. Is kind of one of the tips that you can use to identify them if you get one to sit still long enough.
Now that you said they come out in the spring, do they come out like around Valentine's Day then with the heart-shaped face, or no, or later?
Oh, absolutely not. But yeah.
Oh.
That would have been convenient, but okay. So coletids, cool.
And then the
Can I
Melitidae.
interject a fun fact about coletids?
Yes.
Okay, coletids have a bifid tongue, meaning instead of just being straight, it's like forked, kind
Like
of
a
like a
snake.
snake.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Okay.
they use it to paint like a cellophane substance around their brood chambers where they keep the egg so that it keeps the egg like
Because they nest in the ground.
waterproof and antibacterial inside the ground.
They all nest in the ground.
They paint with their tongues.
Yes.
I mean, we can do that.
I mean, but it was a weird documentary.
Let me know when that piece comes out.
Okay, very cool. That's really neat. Okay, Andrenids, coletidae.
Melitidae is the next family that technically we could have, but we probably have not seen it
Okay.
in Nebraska. I don't know if they have a common name. I don't think they do.
How do
There's
you
so,
spell that
there's so
one?
few of them.
Yeah, I don't know if they do either, but they're also the most primitive family of bees, which is kind of cool.
That's interesting.
Like they were the first true bees
Okay.
back in 120 million years ago.
And essentially a bee is just a really evolved wasp.
That's what I remember reading something about that. Like, is it something that they evolved, you know, that pollination factor because they were going to the flowers to hunt, to predate on insects, and then it started happening where it was more convenient that they were getting the pollen. Is that something like that? Kind of the bee origin story?
Maybe.
I think that's one of them. There's a few hypotheses that float around, and it's evolution. Nobody actually knows which one is right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And the other two?
Halictidae. That's where we talk about sweat bees,
Okay.
or that's the sweat bee family.
Are those like the little adorable green shiny ones?
Yep.
Those ones are able to see.
Yep.
Like the shiny blue ones, I feel like I've seen, unless
Yeah, there's a lot of
Right.
shiny
Mhm.
bees. Period in Nebraska. Yeah.
Halictidae.
So how do you tell, you said that there were some that were really small, you thought they might just be a wasp. How do you tell the difference between like a bee and a wasp? That there's like a certain characteristic that's like, that's a wasp, that's a bee.
That's a good question. Wait, give me one more family because I'm gonna go crazy if I don't know the last family.
He's
and then
gonna
you-
need to give you two.
Huh?
Yeah. I was gonna say we only got 1, 2, 3, 4. Megakylidae. So like the little leaf
Oh, the
miner,
leaf cutters?
leaf cutters, and aphidae. Or honeybees, bumblebees.
Bees. Okay.
Aphidae-
Wait, where do bumblebees fall?
Aphidae covers a lot.
Yeah, that's the biggest family.
Where do bumblebees fall?
Aphidae.
Aphidae. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, bee versus wasp versus a fly. You know, a lot of times I've even seen
That's true. There's
a
a lot of
fly
bees that are
they're little
actually
tricksters.
fly. Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
look like a bee. And I don't know what's happening there, but
Go, Katie.
Katie, yeah, that's
Uh, Okay, mimicry is a pretty cool thing, especially in the insect world. There are a bunch of flies that look like bees and bees look like wasps. The main way to tell without a microscope is their their behaviors. As you learn to watch them, like flies fly differently than bees. They're also
Can
visiting
you
flowers.
demonstrate with your hand?
Also, you sit and just like stare at the bees and the wasps. Is that it?
I mean,
Oh,
when
yeah.
that's what I
Okay.
go out and sit and just like
I mean, I look at
watch.
the snakes, but
Like you just sit and you
okay,
watch. Like
people
it's
do
so-
that. All right. Okay. Sorry.
People do it.
No,
But bees also have different wing venation in them. They're much more detailed than wasps are. For flies, they only have 2 wings instead of 4, which is something you wouldn't think to look for. You see a flying insect, but some of them have 2 wings, some of them have 4.
Okay.
Natalia, you have anything else on wasps besides what they eat and hunt?
Well, the flying of the insects is a good way to tell them apart, but that does require some dedication, and you get used to it and then say that is a bee and you can see it from a distance. Generally, bees have more hair on their bodies than wasps, but there's a lot of exceptions to that, and we can talk about the cuckoo bees and just some of the bees that just don't have that much hair. But that's another, at least a tip to get it narrowed down, and it could still be a very hairless bee, but generally wasps have fewer hairs. And then as far as the flies go, the flies I think are they're the way that they mimic some bees, it's hilarious. Katie, would you say that you collected both bees and wasps in the field during research, thinking that they were bees at the time, and then once you got under the scope, you're like, you're not a bee?
Yeah.
Same here, because like there's some that are just like, this has to be a bee. But also the fly's eyes are usually a lot bigger than a bee's, the compound eyes. So a bee or a fly's eyes almost touch, if not do touch, and then bees are a little bit more spaced. And the antenna on a fly are usually pretty short.
And aren't bees' antennas segmented or not always versus a fly isn't?
They're all segmented if you want to get technical.
Okay.
Under a scope.
Under a scope, yeah, but flies are much shorter.
So okay, so we know more about wild bees in Nebraska, way more than I thought.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
I mean, there's like over 400 bird species that call Nebraska home or at least come through, and now we've learned there's about 400 species of bees. Would you have thought
No, never.
Not at all.
People don't give them enough credit.
No,
I mean,
I
we
don't
don't talk
think
about
so.
them enough. So
I want to know, how are bees doing in Nebraska? Do we have any endangered ones? Like, and also how do we know that kind of information? You know, what's being studied and researched and things like that in Nebraska?
yeah, what is it that we like don't know? We don't know.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite questions.
With bees, there's a lot we know we don't know. We don't have any endangered species, but we do have 4 bumblebee species that are considered species of greatest conservation need.
Okay.
Which means there is data that we know about showing that these certain species have experienced decline. And so the state agencies are able to prioritize those species when they're trying to think about how to do their conservation efforts.
Sweet.
And also, for those of you that don't know, we can't, as a bee researcher or as a bee lab, we can't say these bees are declining, they need to be considered endangered. You know, like nobody makes that designation other than the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Right.
Okay.
So
What has
once,
to happen? I mean, do you just need data to, like, the more data that you have, or
yeah,
then you can?
and then there's a whole process of, you know, applying to the Fish and Wildlife Service, you know, for whatever species it is, and then they review it and assess the situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then they might not even decide to designate it as declining or anything like that.
And
Yeah.
and if I know like how the process of like endangered threatened species goes, a common citizen can like apply for this animal to be like threatened and endangered species, right? There's like the
What?
common citizen person way, and then there's like I'm a biologist, I study these, I believe this
Is
animal.
that real?
I mean, it's not like a yes, it's gonna happen, but I
Is
think
it like
you can apply
is it
for
like a
it.
change.org thing?
Kind of a change.org.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Is that right? Or
I don't know that. I don't know
I
that
don't
part at
know.
all.
Is there something that like just anybody can do, or like what could we do to help if we are huge bee nerds?
Well, doing stuff to help is completely different than making an application to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And what you can do to help on a like a
Big.
local,
I know.
You're just
sorry.
like going for it.
bring it down, Monica.
Bring it down. Okay. Yeah, Katie, what
Bring it down to the local level.
Local,
What are
local.
we gonna do in our own backyard? And then there's
I
then there's
feel like
lots of
there's
things.
two directions we can go. Man, this time is flying.
I know.
It's so much fun.
Flying.
Buzzing by.
Okay.
So I know that there's some cool projects. I know, Katie, that you're working on. I want to hear about. And also then we have had lots of questions about like, hey, what can I plant in my backyard for bees? So let's talk about, Katie, some of the awesome stuff that you are involved in. I helped with that last year and it was so fun. The blast. And I gotta sign up to do it again. I gotta get my transcript. Anyways, let's talk about it.
Like
Yes.
you do something called community science.
Yeah,
I
what
think a
is-
lot of us have heard about it, but I think some of us don't really understand very much about it. So yeah, talk to us
What's
about
community
that.
science?
Yeah, so community science is just when people like anybody can get involved in a project that most of them are collecting information that's considered baseline data.
Mhm.
And so everyone is essentially spreading out across the state for the project like the Nebraska Bumblebee Atlas. And they go and do bumblebee surveys and they submit this data back and it builds this huge data set that can then be used for the Fish and Wildlife Service to sort of assess how the species is doing because there is no longer a gap in that data. So there's a whole bunch of people that are involved in this project across the state. They sign up and take a workshop because obviously going out to run bumblebee surveys is not a skill that we all naturally have. So we teach them about bumblebees, how to photograph them, how to net them, because believe it or not, people find it a little bit awkward to run around swinging an insect net.
Can I just
But
say,
that's so
Yeah.
nerdy and that
it's
works.
nerdy, but guess
Yeah.
what? Ever since you taught me, Katie, I don't go around with nets. I have those little vials and I put them in my nature backpack. And like when I'm hiking with my son, like he knows we get our bee vials just in case we see something cool. Like that's the easiest.
Yeah,
You were
Yeah,
a great teacher.
your
and that-
skill has advanced.
Now you're jealous.
I am.
Next level nerd.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the community science project in the Atlas, we actually have our workshop coming up this year, next 2 weekends, May 1st. So if people are interested in that, we have a workshop on Saturday coming up where they can learn about the Atlas.
Is this virtual?
It is virtual this year again, yep. But if things open up, we might do a field day late summer.
I'm taking notes because that sounds actually interesting.
Are you gonna actually do
I
Probably do. Yeah. And just so everyone knows, all these really great information and these resources that are being brought up tonight, we're gonna certainly we'll send you a follow-up email, everybody, and we're gonna list every one of these resources so you guys have that because there's some really cool stuff here tonight. Anyways, very cool. So that's coming up and that
Yeah. The other one that's coming up soon is the City Nature Challenge too. If you're in the Lincoln area,
Allie
You can-
Mays, I think you're on this. She would
so too.
love if we're mentioning this. So
what's
yeah, so basically you just need iNaturalist on your phone, and whether or not you're in Lincoln, it's a global event. So you can be submitting observations just from your backyard or wherever you go on a hike. And it sort of helps to document the diversity that we're seeing in urban areas and give us a really nice snapshot in this 1 week that people are collecting observations. And that's called the City Nature Challenge if people want to get involved.
And really quick, Katie mentioned iNaturalist, and I know that we have about 42 nature nerds out there tonight right now on our program. But just in case you're a nature nerd that has not heard of iNaturalist, it's definitely one of my favorite apps. You can download on your phone. You take a photo of a plant. I love getting mushrooms on there.
Ooh, those are hard.
I
People
know.
have a hard time identifying them.
I know.
but Yeah.
Fungi, plant, a bee, birds, snakes.
Anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything.
Anything.
And then a lot of like other community scientists and even professional scientists will help ID that for you. And then also it's data. So you're contributing to data. So it's a really cool app. And it's going to be useful for the City Nature Challenge. So thanks for reminding us of that, Katie. That's exciting. What else can we do to help bees? If we are bee nerds,
Like I kind of like bees now that I'm hearing about this. Like, what can I do? Because I don't really know a lot. Like, I have a bee garden at home with some native plants.
Oh yeah.
Is that gonna do it, or like, what else?
Natalia, this is your area of expertise.
Well, everyone should be planting flowers in their yard. The end. That's all I can say.
Preferably like native flowers from a local nursery around here that aren't sprayed with pesticides, that grow from spring, summer, and fall. Get some different colors in there because bees have diets sort of like us. They like to feed on different things. So if you're only giving them sunflowers, it's basically like they're going to be eating saltines all summer.
Okay, so we want a bee buffet.
We need
Yeah.
some diversity.
Bee
Yeah,
buffet
they
backyard.
It's not like a 2-year-old, but just like Cheerios and
Chicken nuggets.
that's it. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, they need some different options there.
So Katie just gave details of what I just said. Plant flowers. In the chat box, I put in some of the links for the Bumblebee Atlas and then some plant lists
Thank you.
that Nebraska Bumblebee Atlas has, as well as the Nebraska Pollinator Habitat Certification Program.
Oh, what's that?
I put the app in there. That's the program that I started when I was still in extension as part of my PhD. You can get your habitat certified as pollinator friendly, and there's a plant list in there as well.
Cool.
You have to meet certain criteria to get certified, but it's not that hard if you want to have a pollinator habitat of some sort anyhow.
Yeah. So besides like some flowers, I know you have to have bees need water. So like a small shallow dish is what I've been always told. Is that right? So that they can land on the rocks and get some water.
Mhm.
What about like nesting or anything? Do we need to provide some homes for them? What works? What doesn't work?
So the majority of wild bees nest in the ground. Just keep that in mind. So the bee blocks and then things like that and all the twigs and the bamboo that we see, that's for like the other 25-ish% of bees that nest in above ground material.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So like twig nesters and things like that. If you can definitely have bee boxes out in your yard or in your habitat, it doesn't matter. There is maintenance though to really be a good steward of these things. They need to be replaced at least once a year because otherwise different bacteria and diseases can overwinter and different sometimes you'll see wasps and things like that move in and live in those little holes. And so the predators kind of start moving in after a while. So you want to make sure that you clean those and replace them.
What's a bee predator?
I was just gonna ask that.
Like a wasp or something? A spider? A crab spider?
Yeah, a bird. I mean, there can be maybe not a bird that would live in the bee box, but yeah. So there's other predators as well, insect wise. But yeah, so I mean, if you have anything, and especially or as well as that water situation, they do need water. Any living insect or any living thing needs water, but you have to replace that water. Otherwise, it's going to become a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So once a week, you have to clean that out and replace the water. So you can't just do stuff and then leave it. So you have to just remember that there is some maintenance and continuing care, let's say.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah, another thing would also just be leaving like patches of bare soil, like working that into your garden's aesthetic instead of having plants everywhere. If you can leave small spaces of loose bare soil, a lot of the ground nesters will utilize that. Or if you have downed stumps or old logs or something that's sort of like rotting wood, if you can let that sit for a few years, there's actually quite a few bees that will chew into that and nest in there.
And that helps a lot of other animals too. It's not just bees.
Exactly.
There's lots of
Yeah.
invertebrates and things like that too.
Yep, all your beneficial insects will be in there too.
And that's another thing to keep in mind when you are gardening. If you have any sort of brush or anything like that, like what Katie said, if you can leave that, or even if it's not brush and it's just like your ornamental grasses, that flowered last year, and so you have these big stems. If you can wait and cut them later in the spring and not do it in the fall, or if you have to cut them earlier, if you just cut them and then just put them somewhere safe that the bees that may be nesting in there can emerge. You're not necessarily destroying their habitat, but you're still doing your garden activities or whatever you need to do. But then you're also still leaving where they've nested and laid their eggs in.
So it kind of sounds to me like if you want to help bees even come to your backyard, there's some maintenance. You need to, change the water. I mean, no one wants gross water.
Your
Let's be
dog, your
real.
cat,
Right.
us, we need to
Change the water up. However, the other fun thing is you can be a little like a lazy gardener. And if you're a little more lazy, that helps the bees. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there was an article
That
that,
works for me. Like, I'm good with that. So, we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to ask some kind of fun questions. And then we have to get our lightning round.
Yeah.
To make sure we have
We
everybody.
want to make sure we get all your
Right.
questions answered.
So some of our last questions for you both are, we really want to know, and this might be a really tough question. I don't know if I could answer this about animals in general, but what is your favorite bee species and why? That's one.
Hold on, Katie and I have
Visuals?
we have visuals for this, because
Yeah.
this
Okay.
warrants a visual.
That's fair.
it was a very hard question though to come up with which bee is my favorite. They're all for different reasons too.
I don't know. I like when people ask me like what's your second favorite or third or fourth favorite reptile.
Then there's no pressure on it.
Yeah.
Is it like, what's your favorite child if you have more than one child? Maybe. Because that'd be hard to
Yeah.
answer.
Thank God we only one.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, look at that fluffy bee.
Oh my.
So this is Bombus
Basket.
bosniaci. This is also commonly called the yellow-faced bumblebee, as
You
can
can't tell this is Katie's favorite bee.
Is this in Nebraska or no?
What was that?
Is this in Nebraska?
This is not in Nebraska. This one is actually strictly in California, Oregon, and Washington along the West Coast. It's a Pacific loving beach.
He's a
bee.
beach babe. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep in mind then that is a very specific location, and so what that bee feeds on is also very specific.
Oh,
And we didn't talk about
like the specialist.
specialized diets at
General.
all, but so many of the wild bees have specialized diet. It's very restricted. And so if the habitat is destroyed, then so are the bees. Sorry. Keep going.
Okay, anyways, downer.
Yeah, I know, right?
Now let's talk about how fluffy he is.
Yeah. So this was the very first bee that I ever got to interact with up close and personal during that class that I talked about earlier. We collected some of these and froze them. And for anybody who doesn't know that much about bees, you can actually freeze them and it sort of brings down their body temperature. They sort of go into like hibernation mode. And then you can take these really nice photos, which is what we do for the atlas. So this photo here was taken by somebody, Kevin Schaefer, who's very active in the Pacific Northwest Bumblebee Atlas. And yeah, I just got to see this bee stick its tongue out as it was waking up and drink nectar. And then we released them from our hands. And it was just a very, very memorable experience to sort of have a bee, something that, we think of as creatures that sting us or are along the lines of lions and tigers and bears before we actually start to understand them.
And love them.
So before we started, really quick, you said they stick their tongue out. Amber was saying that when they cool down, their tongues come out.
Or when they
die. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll
Okay.
kind of regurgitate as a last effort.
Interesting.
Not
Mhm.
always.
Like, not always, yeah, but a
Okay.
lot of times they'll empty their what's called a crop.
Like birds.
And Katie didn't mention this, but it's very important. If you leave the bee in the freezer for a long time, it will kill it.
Yeah.
So what she's talking about is for a very short period of time, just to cool it down, to slow it down.
Yes.
Not to like,
Proud.
Cool
not
it down,
overnight,
slow
because
it
then you
down,
have a
take some
dead
really
bee.
nice photographs, release it.
Right. Just a few minutes in the freezer and then take them out.
Good stuff. Natalia, what's your favorite?
My favorite is this guy right here.
What even? Who is this guy?
This-
He has like a Yeti crab.
Oh, it
You know what a
does look-
Yeti
yeah,
crab?
yeah.
Okay.
This,
Oh, crap. Yeah.
you can find this in Nebraska. This is, I wouldn't say it's super common, but I found a few every year in my research. This is a megachila. This is the male. The picture of them is the male.
Mhm.
And so the female would carry her pollen on her abdomen or on her underside of her belly. But the males, as you can see in their front legs, have these like extensive hairs. They're
Yeah.
hairs. They're not spines or anything. They're hairs.
What's the benefit of that? Is that just
Okay.
is
So
that just finding a lady bee?
We're nerds. It's okay.
Let's hear it.
So this is the male. And so the female, when they're mating, is in front of the male. And the male puts their little hands around and covers the female's eyes with these little hair curtains.
That's kind of romantic.
Kind of romantic. I don't know, like the exact reason why, but so every time there's a few species of males megachilids that you can find in Nebraska. This is pugnata, but there's a couple other ones that have the hairs, but the pugnata I think is the most distinct. And I called it Mr. Curtains every time I saw it. all of my field notes said 3 Mr. Curtains before I knew its scientific name. So
That is nerdy, but I love it so much.
and then in the bottom right is my runner up. It's a cuckoo bee. And so it doesn't have a whole lot of hair. And so it looks like a wasp. But this is Tripiolus, and this is another one that you can find in Nebraska. And I just thought it was pretty. And every time we talk about cuckoo bees, I love cuckoo bees because they're just nuts.
They sound nuts. They do. Sound nuts.
Yeah. So
That's very
I
cool.
didn't know you were going with a runner-up bee. I feel cheated.
Yeah.
Okay,
cheated,
so my runner-up bee, there's one called Lazio Texanum, even though it says Texas in it. It does occur in Nebraska, and it is crepuscular, meaning
That's one of my favorite.
during the moonlight.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah, so because this bee doesn't fly so much during the day, it's more adapted for low light conditions. So its eyes are super enlarged, and bees have these 3 what we call simple eyes, if she gets the photo up here. So in the red box,
Sorry.
those are simple eyes. So they basically take in light and sort of act as like a GPS unit. So the bee can sort of know where it is on the landscape. And so if you look at the ones here, there's the normal one versus
Oh, God, sorry.
nocturnal, and it's greatly enlarged. And you can find these in Nebraska if you go out camping.
So
and
the
look on
largest one is just mostly a light sensor. Is that
the 3, you see those 3 dots on the
Mhm.
top of the bee's head? Yeah, those are called simple eyes. And then the ones on the side are compound eyes. So the ones on the side take in like the imagery,
okay?
and the ones on the top are more of like they just take in light and basically gives the bee a position with the sun, and it can see
Wow.
where it is on the landscape.
That is
That is neat. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, nocturnal bees, who would have ever known?
Yeah. Right. That's
Yeah,
really-
Katie and I both learned about those when we were in grad school, and we're like,
This
you
is
say that?
not real.
Can you say it again one more time, or also type it in the chat so we can remember. We want to make sure we get to all the questions that we've had from our participants tonight, and we're gonna probably. Are we ready for the lightning round?
Are you guys ready for the lightning round?
you bet.
If you're not familiar in what a lightning round is, or you're kind of
This
late
is our
joining
first
us,
program.
yeah, no one's familiar with the lightning round. So what we're going to do is we have a bunch of questions that all of you asked beforehand or something that you have typed in the chat. So we're going to ask them very quickly, and Natalia and or Katie are going to give us kind of short, quick answers. So we want to make sure we get them. They just might not be as long and drawn out. We're just, again, lightning round. So
We're gonna buzz through it. So
so good.
I know.
All right.
I'm not gonna stop.
Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready?
Okay.
All right. The first one comes from Leah, and it's how is it possible for honey to have an organic label designation? So how's that organic portion determined? Go.
Katie, I want to do this one.
Okay, you got it.
And I have a visual
You're on the timer.
right here. So if you see this little white square on the bottom left, middle left, that is where your one hive of honeybees is. And how far will honeybees travel to get food? Up to 6 miles if they're desperate, but they'd rather not. They'd rather stay within that 1 mile to 2 mile radius. If you look to see if it's going straight across to the 1 mile, can you guys see my little arrow? Right
Yeah.
there? Okay. If you go to the 1 mile out in any direction from your one hive, that's how many acres? 2,010 acres.
I was gonna say, are you quizzing me on math? This is about.
No, it says it right here in front of you. You don't have to do the math.
Okay.
But that is a lot of acreage. Who has 2,000 acres of organic alfalfa wildflower farms?
Whoa.
Nobody. So if they have to go farther out, they have to go out to 2 miles, that's 8,000 acres.
Wow.
So what does organic honey mean? It does not mean anything that the bee is bringing in. The bee could be bringing in straight chemical because you can't control it. You can't control where these little insects go. And if something looks delicious to them, they're going to bring it back.
Mm.
The only way that honey is certified organic is by what the beekeeper themselves introduces to the hive.
Mm.
And so if they use any sort of synthetic compound as far as like mite control in the hive, then it couldn't be organic. So it's only what the beekeeper does to the hive itself, but you cannot control what the bees bring in.
That makes sense. Very cool.
So Katie, would you pay money for organic honey?
Depends on how different it is from non-organic honey,
But how would you know?
but you wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
Okay. Lightning round. Are you ready? That was a fantastic visual.
Sorry, that was not a lightning round response, but
We'll get better. That's the first one.
it's
Like,
a very involved process.
Okay, this one is a good one. This is from Anne, and she asked, do all bees sting? I think this is a fantastic question. Everybody wants to know it. Everybody's wondering. Let's hear it.
No, they don't. Male bees don't even have a stinger, and most bees are not ever going to want to sting you because they would have to go out of their way. They'd have to stop foraging. They'd have to stop laying their eggs and take time to sting you. And sometimes if a bee does sting you, it will die. So there's no point for a bee to sting you unless it's defending its home.
Okay.
So
The
if they
bees
feel
that-
threatened, they'll want to sting. But otherwise, it's
Can I
slim.
comment that I learned the hard way that bumblebees can definitely sting you more than once or twice or 3 times, and sometimes in the face? Oh no.
It's true. Honeybees,
Bad to monitor them.
the workers are the female and they have the barb stinger. And so it comes out when they sting. And so it pulls out their whole stomach system. That's why they die.
That's why they die. But bumblebees are like, it's like
Anything
a sword.
anything else can repeat sting if it's a female, because the stinger itself is a modified ovipositor or the egg laying structure. And so of course males don't have that. So if you can see it's a male bee, then you can hold it in your hand and pet it and it's not going to sting you.
Well, I learned that party trick, Natalia, from you and Dr. Judy was smart. If you know that it's a male with sometimes a little yellow mustache eyebrow,
Like
Bumblebee.
or on the bumblebee,
Right.
you can impress your friends and pick it up.
Wow.
Because you're not going to get stung. I've done that.
To reiterate, they're only defending something. And so if you see a bee on a flower when you're out walking, like, okay, like keep walking, like don't freak out about it.
They're not going to come for you.
They're
Let's see.
having lunch, leave them alone.
Okay, do bees make use of the bee nest boxes? I think we covered that one
A little bit.
bit.
Yeah, a little bit. She mentioned that one.
One from maybe the last one from Christy. She asked, do we have carpenter bees in Diller, Nebraska? That's a cool question. Carpenter bees in general, though, those are those big, huge ones. I remember doing the bumblebee atlas, Katie, and one, like buzzing by my face, and I got so excited, but it wasn't a bumblebee.
Yeah, there are also tiny carpenter bees too that like to nest in stems of rose bushes or blackberries.
That are
And
blue.
yes, we do have all kinds of carpenter bees here.
Really quick, how do they get the name carpenter bee? Do they build things? Do they use wood? How do they get that?
Yeah. They
Small
use
little
them-
hammers.
Oh, in the tool belt.
okay, in their tool. Yeah,
I did see that one with the tool
that
belt
makes
on.
sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so they actually chew through pithy stems or into wood, and they'll make their nest in there long and skinny. and the stuff that they're chewing up or masticating, they'll actually use that to seal off the cell when they're done. And they do it in this very intricate circular spiral motion that looks like was handmade or something, but
That's
it's just,
really neat. The
yeah,
question, do they paint it with their tongue, or is that just the
That's a
biffid?
cellophane bee.
Yeah, the Calididae.
Yes.
Oh my God.
We are
If
look at us nerds.
anybody, has carpenter bees or bees like nesting in their deck, it would be the big carpenter bees, and
Yeah.
you can keep that from happening if you maintain your deck and seal it or paint it or things like that. So they usually like wood that's older and starting to rot a little bit.
Sweet. Natalia, if you want to end your screen share,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're all good.
We got about 2 minutes left. I don't know about you guys, but that hour went really fast.
Yeah. Okay.
So we just kind of want to wrap up here. Again, we want to thank all of you guys for coming tonight. This is our first Nature Nerd Night. And this is going to be, like we said, a monthly thing. If you kind of missed the beginning here, this will be the third Tuesday of every single month. They are all pre-registered, just like you did for this one tonight. So our next one is going to be May 18th. It's a Tuesday. We're going to be talking about birds, but not only just birds, but the lady birds.
The ladies,
The
'cause they
ladies
never-
actually run the world. in the
They
bird
do, and they
world.
don't get the credit they deserve. So
Yeah.
we're gonna make sure they have an entire hour.
Yes, just voted to the ladies. So,
Yep.
Jason, the bird nerd, is going to be joining us. And he is, I mean, if you guys think we're nerdy, and Natalia and Katie Lamke,
Just wait.
his name is literally the bird nerd.
Mhm.
And so he is good.
Did he get that legally changed?
He might
I
have
don't know.
actually. I don't know.
I want to get mine.
Amber the bee nerd.
Yeah.
Okay. So next one's gonna be May 18th. Make sure you register for that. And if you are nerdy like the rest of us, we have some cool things to share with you. So this is our next one, just to get you pumped up for that ladies thing. And then if you want more nerdiness, we have a lot of cool things that you can check out. We have a whole YouTube channel, which Amber, we're gonna be on YouTube.
We're gonna
Like,
be famous.
Yeah, I'm gonna post
I
this
can
on
be.
YouTube.
We can be as cool as Wildcrafts because that's all my son watches.
Yeah.
And now we can be.
Yeah, we're gonna have our own YouTube. Well, we don't have our own YouTube channel, but Nebraska Human Parks Education has their own YouTube channel.
Mhm.
You can find us under the playlist Nature Nerd Night. We will get them probably up by tomorrow afternoon or so. We'll get this video. So if you didn't get all of it, or if you want to watch it again, which we know you all do,
Or share it with your nerdy friends.
share with your nerdy friends. It's going to be up to share. We also have a Facebook page, Nebraska Wildlife Education. We have an Instagram page where we post some really cool photos. And then also we have just a website that talks about more events coming up. And we have some lesson plans and PowerPoints and free downloadable things that you can, all your nature nerds can use. So we appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Natalia and Katie, thank you so much for joining us. Like we talked about, we're the science, communicators. We're not the bee experts, so we appreciate you for being here tonight. We gotta get one more in.
Yeah, you have to.
So being here.
But we are all nerds. That's it.
Yeah.
And everyone else was here tonight, so that's really exciting. I saw some folks ask about getting contact information for Natalia and Katie, and for sure we're going to send out resources. We're going to email you guys probably tomorrow. Definitely would love your input on how you like this program and future topics you'd be interested in, because we want to make this the nerdiest, coolest program. So we're going to send you an evaluation, and we will send you a whole list of awesome resources that we chatted about tonight, including contact information for our experts tonight, if they're, are you guys cool with that?
Yep.
I thought so. Okay, sweet. Okay, awesome. Thank you all so much. This was super fun. And keep, stay curious and keep it nerdy. I don't know. There's so much to like nerd out about,
There is.
especially in
There's
Nebraska.
so many cool things in Nebraska. Yeah.
Natalia and Katie, all good?
I think so.
All
Thank
good.
you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks so much. Have
We'll
a
see you
good
next
night.
time.
Bye.